What have you unintentionally said out loud and didn't realize until it was too late? I was running some errands and stopped off at the grocery store. I was making dinner for my girlfriend that evening, nothing fancy, just some American chop suey. The only ingredient I didn't have was ground beef. I picked up a pound of the supermarket's finest lean ground and strolled to front of the store. By chance I had traveled down the toiletries hygiene aisle when it struck me. I should pick up some condoms in case tonight takes a turn for the best. I grabbed my favorite brand and proceeded to the checkout aisle. The cashier at the checkout was a teenage girl, probably 15 or 16. I plopped my 2 items down on the belt, ground beef and condoms. Halfway between scanning item number 1 and reaching for item number 2, something clicks in her brain and she looks at me with this peculiar, puzzled, slightly disturbed look. I didn't know what to make of it, and it actually took a second to register. I was in a staring match with a 16-year-old naive cashier when it hit me and I blurted out, "I am going to frick the meat." She was mortified and I was embarrassed and mad that my mouth and brain had conspired against me to make me look like a grade A creep. TLDR. I told a teenage cashier I was going to frick ground beef with the condoms I was purchasing. As a customs guy in Canada a few years back, an American traveler's vehicle was being inspected by me in secondary. It was a mess, so I say, "It appears that you have a lot of junk in your trunk." Then me and the other officer I was doing the inspection with fricking lost it laughing. Meanwhile the guy in the car is eyeing you both nervously and wondering if you're psychotic cops. He probably grinned and chuckled a bit, trying to relieve some of the tension in the air. Of course, he wouldn't have been so tense if it weren't for all those bodies in there. I had a lot of things on my mind and blurted out frick my whole life, but I realized what I was doing and stopped before I finished the sentence. I ended up saying frick my whole out loud. This was in a room with about 10 other people, most of whom just looked at me. I looked down at my lap and just held my head there until everyone looked away because I didn't know what else to do. Also, I'm a straight guy. I was riding in a car with 3 friends, one of them black, the driver. He put on a song I liked and I said, "Mine," without thinking. I spent the next half hour in silence. I work at a coffee shop. I'm ringing up this woman, while another one of my co-workers is grabbing whatever pastry item she's ordered. My co-worker asks her if she wants a fork with her pastry. She replied, "No, that's fine." And without thinking at all, I say, in an overly nasal over-the-top valley girl accent complete with eye roll, "No, that's fine," directly to her face. I just started apologizing profusely. "You should have honked like a donkey after saying it. That way you could have passed as crazy." I was a little more than tipsy at work and said to a full bar, "All I like to do is tend bar and play with cats, but I cannot get paid to do cats." No after the fact clarification or anything. Cannot get paid to do cats. Cannot get paid to do cats. Sanuvabik. I can't do every cat. No, I can't do every cat. "Well, yeah, of course you can pick me up. You're built like a linebacker." To my friend's girlfriend that's 6'1" and muscular. If we weren't all drunk it would have turned out much worse. I'm 5'7" BTW. I was watching a baseball game with my girlfriend. She didn't know much about the game. At one point in between innings she asked where all the players were going. I said going poo poo, not even sure why that came out. A mom and teenage kids sitting next to me overheard and just looked at me like WTF is wrong with this grown man. I don't know why, but this made me laugh so much harder than any of the others. I was sitting in my 2nd grade class while my teacher rambled on about some dumb cursive lesson. Suddenly, I still don't know why, I stood up, put my fist in the air like I was about to lead a frickin' revolution and yelled Cocoa Puffs. The teacher called my mom and had a conference with her about it. My mom never bought Cocoa Puffs again. In 8th grade our wacky science teacher passes around a rock that she claims is one of the hardest on earth. One of the students drops it and it breaks into a few pieces and she says, "That must have been a cracked specimen," and without thinking, I said, pretty loud, "You're a cracked specimen." I felt bad because everyone laughed but she let me off the hook with a wink. She wanted you. My high school was not awful but it wasn't filled with the classiest of people either. So, one day this ghetto white girl in my art class bumps into a table or something and says "Darang" without even thinking. I immediately repeat "Darang." She snaps around. "Are you making fun of me?" "No, it just sounded fun to say." Completely true. This explanation seemed to satisfy her and we continued with our day. TLDR. My retardedness simultaneously almost got my butt kicked and then saved me from said butt kicking. I was in the supermarket buying the usual things that allow me to commit terrible sins essentials, and as I'm walking around there's a woman with her baby that won't, despite her best efforts, stop crying. I finally get to the line and she pushes her cart up behind me, her baby still wailing like a 50s air raid siren. As I'm waiting, I glance over and utter, "Huh, so that's why people shake them." Had her eyes been daggers, I'd have more holes in me than the plot of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's a sad truth, but yeah, that is why. I was with my friend, and as we were walking up the stairs to my house she jokingly asked me where my cat was, as if I would know. I jokingly responded maybe she's dead. Then I remembered her dog of 12 years had died the day before. My best friend and I have a habit of saying phrases back and forth. For example, if somebody says Coke we will immediately say it's the real thing. Another more recent example would be if somebody said McDonald's we might say I'm loving it. I was at an interview for an internship at a research facility where I would get hands-on experience working with chemistry that would look awesome on a resume. The man interviewing me said something along the lines of "Around here we like people who really get in the zone." I don't really remember the first half of the sentence but my ears focused on "get into the zone." As you may have already guessed I immediately said "AutoZone." He sat there looking at me like I was crazy. I played it off as a bad joke and he must not have cared because I actually ended up getting the internship. I just imagined you interrupting the interview in the absurdly deep voice and couldn't breathe for a sec. When I was in 6th grade, I started singing "You Are My Sunshine" to my homeroom teacher instead of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. My friend David pointed this out shortly thereafter. Luckily, I don't think anybody else heard. I don't know which is crazier, that you didn't notice this or that no one else did. I was over at my friend's house in like the 4th, 5th grade. Her dad, being a bit quirky, came out of his room in tighty whities to mine and my friend's horror. Her mom yelled him and he goes "Oh god I'm so sorry" and ran back into his room. To obviously defuse the situation, her mother says "I hope things like that don't happen in your house." My response: "No, my dad isn't stupid enough to walk around in his underwear." You should have said, "That's okay, nobody in my family wears underwear anyway." I was at a Chinese takeout place. I was waiting for my food with a friend and the guys behind the counter were speaking Chinese. Without even realizing it I go, "Ching chong, ching chong." I quickly shut up and walk out and had my friend get my food for me. Right after I had my baby, I was in the hospital still and when the nurse came in I woke up and yelled pornography. I don't know what I was dreaming about, but he looked at me like I was crazy and just walked out. After I had surgery, appendectomy, when I was waking up in the recovery room, all I kept repeating, in this heavy NY accent, was, "I want a bagel with shmi." The attending nurse couldn't help laughing. She called me later when I was in a regular room to check on me and tell me she appreciated my entertainment value. I was ordering a burrito at Chipotle. The guy in front of me was apparently worked there and was just eating on his day off. He was also a vegetarian. As he was ordering, the guy making his salad was heckling him saying he was going to put all sorts of meats on his salad. Afterwards, while he was making my burrito I idiotically say, "You can give me as much meat as you want." Probably the gayest thing I've ever said. I once told a cop to blow me after he pulled me over. There was an empty beer can in my center console and I was riding with 3 others. He asked whose beer it was, to which I promptly replied, "It's not mine. You can blow me right now if you want." Translate: "You can administer me a breathalyzer test." Snorts and chortles is all I could hear from behind. I was dispatching the local sheriff's department, my still current job. Unfortunately, anyone hiring senior CS students. This one deputy attempts to give me a tag number for a car he had just pulled over. He keeps cutting off his radio, so all I hear is C123. I say, please repeat. I missed the first letters. He does it again. I ask him politely to repeat. Finally, he keys up and says very rudely ABC123, yelling at me on the radio. I should have said 10-4, but what I actually said on the radio was thanks. But I called the patrol supervisor to apologize. He said crap. I would have done the same thing. I'll talk to him later. Still, my face was red and I did feel quite stupid. Man, that's a crazy tag number. So during lunch me and some friends were playing bulls and I was just about to win. I needed to put down an 8 but I only had an ace. When I put down the ace my Jew friend calls bulls and I yell out Jukant. Yikes. First date. She bent over to get something out of her car. In my head I said blang. I consciously made sure I thought it and didn't say it. So I was legit confused when she turns around asks what did you say? Me. I didn't say anything. Her. Really? I thought I heard you say dang when I bent over. Me. Oh. Been with her 17 months now. 17 months. It's a relationship, not a goddamn baby. Say a year and a half, like normal people do. In a staff training at work my boss brought up these steel-toed boots that you can strap on over your regular shoes. I found myself repeating the phrase strap-ons to my boss. Out of context, I imagine you just repeating the phrase strap-ons over and over to your boss until they have you forcibly removed from the meeting. A while ago I was doing group work in my epidemiology class and we were discussing what the disease-carrying food was in an outbreak. A ham sandwich, some cake, and some coffee. When we get to talking about why it is or isn't the cake I say it's probably not the dong. My fiance and I say dong in reference to cake because of that scene in The Father of the Bride where Martin Short as the wedding coordinator is talking about the cake and his accent makes it sound like he's saying dong. They were so confused and weirded out. I tried to explain, but it didn't help. TLDR. Creeped out my epidemiology group by calling cake dong. I got one. So I was at a party and this really nasty looking chubby redneck girl was yammering on about her taste in men saying I DK about y'all, but I can't go for those queer baits that moisture their hands, go to tanning saloons, and those stupid gyms. I like me a man that got his build from breaking in a Bronco, a tan from working in the sun, and calloused hands from ropes. I say to my friends yay, a guy that spends all day with farm animals probably won't be interested in coming home to another one. Said it while I ate aloud, and that's how I got my boss beat by her BF, brother, cousin, all of the above. I was in my Greek history class and my teacher mentioned something about the island of Lesbos. It pops into my head that the people who live there are called lesbians and that some of those people are men. So in the middle of lecture I yell my grandfather was a lesbian, my father was a lesbian, and damn it I am a lesbian. Now although I did this in my head but the stunned look from my professor and the laughter of my classmates told me otherwise. Well, I have Tourette's so this happens often. Usually it's nonsense like R and weird sounds, but every once in a while I'll say frick and other profane things. It's always exciting being a white male and screaming N loudly around people, especially black people. I was in a crowded theater with my girlfriend, now wife. We were watching some dramatic movie, sorry don't remember which one, and in the film this guy verbally berates his girlfriend. There was a very dramatic pause, at which point I said in a normal speaking tone, you dong. The entire theater cracked up. Guess I said out loud and not to myself. I was seeing Fantastic Four 2 with my brother. It's pretty clear he's not liking it. So along comes the climax of the movie and right after the Silver Surfer implodes Galactus and there's that long pause my brother just belt out LRAM. Everyone lost their crap. There was period in my life where I would respond to how are you doing with well, I'm still alive. However, this really didn't work out too well when the mother attending her son's funeral asked me how I was doing. I went over to my friend's place for a sleepover to, hang out with the guys, play Halo until 4 AM and engage his tomfooleries. So I wake up the next morning, really afternoon, in a really groggy state. Now, being a male who sleeps generally in a prone position, it's natural that I have morning wood. Well, It's not so natural when you proclaim it proudly to your friends, in a moment of absent-mindedness. And to all my friends, I said, guys, I am totally in boner mode right now. They never let me forget. They tell all the girls, I am sad. I want to kiss you. Everything went better than expected. I didn't get a kiss, mind you. I just didn't get kneed in the groin either. Joe Namath, AskReddit. We were driving by an In-N-Out and the line was out the door. My buddy saw the line and said, an In-Out my butt. Had a pretty good laugh about that one. Grade 7 basketball tryouts. The girls' tryouts are going on the court next to us. We're watching them take free throws for some reason. It's dead silent. A feeble, meek-looking girl who was obviously very nervous trying out is about to take a shot. She does. It's a terrible, terrible shot. Misses the backboard completely. In my mind I think, it was actually out loud. I was kicked out of tryouts. So when I was younger my family went to church, like once a year, and it was awful. So my mind wanders and I start thinking if they have diet communion. So when I go up to receive, my scumbag brain gets me to say I'm on a diet. Do you have fat-free holy bread? I actually thought it was hilarious, but everyone else, especially the priest, did not. Don't feel too bad. I got in trouble for asking if they had any cheese to go with my Jesus cracker. Last semester, my histology class ended with a really tough quiz. Unfortunately, we had a 3-hour lab, starting 45 minutes after lecture let out. As my friends and I left the classroom and headed for a dining hall, we were talking about how incredibly boring the class was, and how none of us wanted to go to lab. Walking away from the classroom, my friend and I continue discussing this, and then I just blurt out, dude, let's just freaking skip lab and get high as crap. I heard some keys jingling behind me, turned around, and to my dismay, my teacher was walking right behind us, back to her office to eat lunch. Embarrassed, my friend peeled off into some vending machine area, and I just followed him up with a just kidding after I turned around and smiled at my teacher. I ended up going to lab, and my teacher thought that my friend and I were potheads for the rest of the semester. TL. DL. I said let's just skip lab and get high, very adamantly as my teacher walked behind me. I was in line to get food in high school and all of a sudden these two crazy fat chicks start fighting. And I don't know why. I wasn't with anyone I knew, but I yelled out, I'm fatter. No, I'm fatter, and then security came but they both looked like they were gonna eat my baby butt. I started singing Story of a Girl by 9 Days under my breath. The song was stuck in my head, but for some reason I thought I was only humming. Two classmates next to me started giggling and I asked them what's so funny and they said nothing. Which is about when I realized I had been singing and said back, you know you love that song. Well, now it's gonna be stuck in my head. One time at a party when I was pretty drunk, a very attractive girl walked past me and I said, wow, she's pretty, out loud. She turned around and smiled. Yay, but didn't stop to talk. Boo. I was playing Pokemon Fired in grade 6 with headphones in. It was summer and nearing the end of the school year, so the teacher let us chill for the day. My headphones was blasting battle music, so I wasn't aware of how loud I really was. When I beat Gary at the end of the Elite Four, I had a close battle between my Lapras and his Blastoise. I shouted, I'm a Pokemon master. I didn't realize until I took the headphones off and it was silent. I don't regret saying it. My mom came to visit me for Christmas and I were walking around Manhattan when she spots a roasted chestnut vendor. Excuse me sir, are those your nuts that smell so good? The guy just gives a blank stare. I pull my mom away into the crowd. Not me, but my old roommate. It was Thanksgiving, and his whole family was gathered at his father's home. It was the dad's first time cooking Thanksgiving dinner, so it was running a bit late, and people were getting good-naturedly anxious to eat. The dad walks out of the kitchen and says, okay, so we can wait another 10 minutes for the vegetables, or we can start now and the vegetables will be a little crunchy. My roomie decides to be funny, so he stands up and pumps his fist in the air and starts to yell, bring on the crunchy vegetables, but he realizes halfway through his proclamation that his tongue got ahead of his brain and he's about to yell, bring on the country vegetables. Well, that doesn't make sense. so he stops yelling right in the middle of the word country. So all any spectator saw was the father asking when everyone wanted to eat, and my roomie standing up, thrusting his fist in the air, and yelling, "Bring on the sea." While hanging out with a few friends, this girl I knew not too well randomly told me and my friend that her mom used to be addicted to crack. About 5 minutes later, my friend and her were arguing about whether or not ghosts were real. The girl then insisted, "No, ghosts are real. A ghost threw my mom down the stairs once." I blurted out, "Are you sure it wasn't the freaking crack?" Felt bad, but who wouldn't come to that conclusion? I was in Paxson with my friend Kirsten who likes to fake tan, and saw a horribly ugly orange shirt. I didn't make a connection, and shouted out, "Look Kirsten, it's your color." She walked away. Also, in 8th grade, my teacher was showing us a picture of a teacup and used tea bag she drew. I murmured teabag to my friends, and everyone heard it. Last, I remember thinking that all families only wanted 2 children when I was young, and realized my cousin's family had 3. I asked the youngest one if she was an accident in front of her mother. I used to yell at my brother, "You're adopted. Our parents don't love you," all the time, just to frick with him, and he laughs. I said it to one of his friends once when we were wrestling, and I about died. He's actually adopted. In class, lecture on labor history in the US. Discussion goes towards crappy jobs that no one wants. A fellow student bring up the question, "Who wants to pick cotton?" I said black people in my head. I also said it out loud, but I said it in my head too. Good job me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.